Okay, so imagine North America, but like it's ruled by the King of England.
Wow.
Yeah, wild, right?
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
We could be sipping tea and watching cricket instead of
Yeah,
going to the baseball game.
totally, yeah.
That's how close things were. Today, we're taking a deep dive
Wow.
into the American Revolution.
A time when a group of colonists decided,
They said, you know what?
yeah, they said,
We've had enough.
enough is enough.
Exactly.
And they decided to challenge the mightiest empire in the world.
They really did.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a story about ideas
Yeah.
and battles
Yeah.
and historical figures. And we're going to see how they actually pulled this off.
It's incredible. We'll see how a group of colonists fueled by
All right.
just a belief in liberty and self-government.
They had this dream.
You had this dream.
They had this vision
Yeah,
that they turned into reality.
and made it happen.
Exactly. Okay, so let's set the stage.
Okay.
1776.
7076.
Relations between Great Britain and the 13 colonies
Uh-oh.
is pretty strained.
Oh, yeah. Things are getting bad.
Things are not looking good.
Yeah.
The British are imposing taxes.
Tax is never good.
Not good.
No.
And the colonists are like,
Hey!
this is tyrannical.
Yeah, they're not happy about it.
And events like the Boston Tea Party
Oh, yeah.
are just making things worse.
Stirring things up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Second Continental Congress is,
They're trying to govern,
they're trying to figure this out.
but they don't have any real authority.
It's a recipe for revolution, wouldn't you say?
It really is. It's like a powder keg waiting to explode.
Mm.
And right into this volatile mix
Free.
steps this really unexpected figure,
All right, I'm excited. Who was it?
Thomas Paine,
Okay.
a former corset maker from England.
All right, this is where things get interesting.
Yes.
So he publishes this pamphlet
A little pamphlet
called Common Sense.
in January of 1776. And this thing, it takes the colonies by storm.
It was like a bestseller.
Total bestseller, yeah.
It wasn't just some boring political thing.
No, no, no.
It was a call to action.
It was a call to action written in plain language.
Everyday colonists could understand it.
Absolutely, yeah. They could relate to it.
Paine was brilliant.
Yeah.
He knew how to connect with the common man.
Absolutely, yeah. He argued that it was just common sense for America to be independent.
Yeah.
It's like, why are we even doing this?
It makes sense, right?
It's common sense.
He didn't just appeal to logic. He appealed to emotion.
Right. He appealed to their sense of justice.
Their yearning for freedom.
A desire for something better.
It was powerful.
And you know what?
Brett.
His words were like a jolt of electricity.
Okay.
They ignited a passion for revolution that just spread.
Like wildfire.
Wildfire!
He wrote this line, and it just became so iconic.
Oh, yeah.
The cause of America is the cause of all mankind.
It's true. It resonated with so many people.
It resonated deeply, yeah.
They felt like they were fighting for something bigger than themselves.
Much bigger.
Yeah.
But not everyone was a fan of Paine, right?
Yeah. Not everybody agrees.
We're like, hold on.
Hold on a second.
What are we doing here?
Yeah, some people, like John Adams,
Okay, yeah.
while he supported independence,
Right.
he was wary of Paine's kind of populist approach.
Like it was a little too much.
A little too much. Adams, very pragmatic, believed that Paine's visions needed to be tempered
Okay.
with a little dose of reality.
That tension between idealism and pragmatism.
Oh, it's a classic tension.
It really is. It's a thread that runs through the entire revolution.
Absolutely. It's a debate that still shapes our political discourse today.
Right. It's incredible.
It's fascinating.
It's still relevant.
Still relevant. And, as events unfolded,
Yeah.
this tension became even more obvious. Just a few months after Common Sense, hits the streets, the British make a pretty big move. They declare a blockade on the colonies.
That's a big deal.
It's essentially an act of war.
They're not messing around.
No, they're not messing around.
This forces the colonists, they have to decide.
Yeah.
Do they stay with Great Britain or
Or do they go their own way?
declare independence?
Independent.
This is it. This is the moment of truth. And we know what they chose.
Right. They chose independence.
Independence.
Bold move.
Bold move. And that decision, it's enshrined
Oh, yeah.
in the Declaration of Independence.
One of the most important documents in American history.
It is, right?
Yeah.
This document formally cut ties.
Severed those ties.
Yeah, with the British monarchy.
That's it. No more king.
The Declaration is more than just some political document.
Oh, it's so much more than that. It's a statement of principles.
It is.
Drawing heavily on these Enlightenment ideas particularly John Locke.
Mm-hmm.
His theory of the social contract.
Governments get their power from the people.
From the consent of the governed. Exactly.
Right there in the Declaration. All men are created equal.
Oh, such powerful words.
That they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights.
It's like music, isn't it?
That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Beautiful.
It is beautiful.
These words, they became a beacon of hope.
For the colonists?
For the colonists.
But also
for people all over the world.
Striving for freedom.
Striving for freedom.
It gave them hope.
It gave them hope.
Now, we have to remember the Declaration, it was also a strategic document.
Right. It was meant to, get some support from foreign powers.
Like France.
Especially France. It was essentially like a plea for help.
But there's also a tragic irony in the Declaration.
Yeah.
You can't ignore it. How could a nation that's built on the idea of equality also allow slavery to exist?
It's a huge contradiction.
Yeah. How do you reconcile that?
Yeah. And Thomas Jefferson,
I wrote it.
The author of the Declaration,
Yeah.
He owned hundreds of slaves.
It's hard to wrap your head around, isn't it?
It is. It's a stark reminder of just how complex, how contradictory the realities of that time were.
So the Declaration is signed. Bold statement. Shot heard around the world.
Literally a shot heard around the world.
But meanwhile, back on the ground, there's a war raging. A massive British force.
30,000 strong.
They arrive in New York, determined to crush this rebellion.
They are not messing around. This is not a tea party anymore.
No more tea. This is war.
This is war. It was a clash of styles.
Oh, tell me about it.
The British, they had the numbers, the resources. They were used to fighting.
Formal European warfare, right?
Big open battlefields, lines of troops.
Like a chessboard.
Like a chessboard. But the colonists
had to adapt.
They had to adapt. They had to be more flexible, more agile.
Guerrilla tactics.
Guerrilla tactics. Hit and run. They knew the terrain.
Like David versus Goliath, right?
Exactly.
You get this scrappy underdog facing off against this giant.
A giant. The Continental Army, led by George Washington, constantly short of men, supplies, funding.
It's a miracle they lasted as long as they did.
They were outmatched in almost every way.
But they had one advantage.
They had heart.
They had fighting spirit.
Fighting spirit. They were fighting for their homes, for their families.
So their vision of a free and independent nation.
And they had Washington.
He was a leader, wasn't he?
He was a leader. Despite his limited military experience, he had this incredible ability to inspire his troops.
Early on, things looked pretty bleak, though.
Yeah, the early days were tough. The Battle of Long Island.
The biggest battle of the war.
The biggest battle of the whole war, and it was a British victory.
Almost wiped out Washington's entire army.
It was a devastating blow.
That's like the revolution was over before it even began.
Yeah, it felt that way.
But then Washington, he pulls off this daring escape.
Across the Delaware River.
In December of 1776.
December 1776.
What a gamble.
A desperate gamble, but it proved to be a turning point.
I'm trying to imagine it.
Yeah.
The dead of winter.
The river's choked with ice.
Washington's army, they're exhausted, they're demoralized.
They're facing certain defeat.
And yet, they'll slip away.
Under the cover of darkness.
A testament to their resilience.
Absolutely. Their belief in the cause.
It's incredible.
It is. And, that escape was more than just a military maneuver.
What was it?
It was a symbol. It saved the Continental Army from being completely wiped out.
Yeah.
But it gave them this much-needed boost.
Of morale.
Of morale, exactly.
So.
And just days later, Washington launches this surprise attack.
On Christmas night.
Christmas night.
No less.
Against the Hessian troops at Trenton.
And then another victory at Princeton.
Back-to-back victories, coming on the heels of that crushing defeat.
It's like a comeback story, right?
It is. It solidified Washington's image as a leader.
A brilliant military leader.
Someone who could snatch victory.
From the jaws of defeat?
From the jaws of defeat.
They were more than just military victories, though, right?
Oh, absolutely.
They were symbolic victories. They rekindled the flame of hope.
Yeah, it showed the British that this war was far from over.
And remember, the British, their strategy was to isolate New England.
Yeah. They wanted to control the Hudson River Valley.
Cut off the head, so to speak.
Yeah, cut off the head of the rebellion. But that plan suffered a major setback in 1777.
At Saratoga.
Saratoga.
As a turning point.
A major turning point.
What happened?
Well, General John Burgoyne,
Nice, yeah.
British commander known for his flamboyant style, his rather excessive baggage train. He was defeated by the Americans.
Led by General Horatio Gates.
Horatio Gates, that's right. And Burgoyne's defeat.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a military setback.
It was bigger than that.
It had huge strategic implications.
It was a signal to the world.
To the world, especially to France.
Yeah.
That the Americans, they had a real chance of winning this thing.
They weren't just a bunch of rebels.
No, this was a serious fight.
And this paved the way for a formal alliance.
Between the United States and France.
In 1778.
1778.
Game changer. Game changer.
The French enter the war. It's incredible when you think about it.
Oh, my dear.
This group of colonists, just a few years earlier, they were subjects of the British crown.
They were.
And now
they're standing shoulder to shoulder with one of Britain's biggest rivals.
This little colonial rebellion is now a global conflict.
Global.
It's incredible.
The stakes just got a lot higher.
The American Revolution.
Yeah.
It's no longer just about independence.
It's about the balance of power in the world.
It's about international politics.
High stakes. We'll pick up on this thread and much more in the next part of our deep dive. I can't wait. Don't forget to subscribe to the deep dive to be notified when the next part of this series is released.
You know, the French alliance really changed things for the British.
Yeah.
They were fighting a war on, like, multiple fronts all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Their resources were stretched thin.
Across the globe.
Across the globe.
It's a classic example of, how empires can get vulnerable.
Right.
When they overextend themselves.
When they try to do too much, it's like juggling too many flaming torches. Eventually you're going to drop one.
You're going to get burned.
Exactly.
But while the British were busy fighting all over the world, the war in America, it was far from over. In fact, for the colonists, it was about to get even tougher.
Things were about to get real. The British, they realized their initial strategy wasn't working.
To just crush the rebellion quickly.
To just crush it. Yeah, that didn't work. So they shifted their focus to the South.
The Southern colony.
The Southern colony.
Why the South?
Well, they thought there were more loyalists down there.
People who were still loyal to the crown.
Exactly. And they hoped to exploit that, turn them against the Patriots.
Okay.
Plus, the South was vital for resources.
Tobacco.
Rice. Things Britain needed.
But they quickly learned that the South, it wasn't going to be easy.
Not a walk in the park. They faced fierce resistance.
From local militias.
Local militias. These guys were tough.
Seasoned frontiersmen.
Skilled in guerrilla warfare.
It became really vicious.
Oh, yeah. The fighting in the South was brutal. Both sides.
Yeah.
They resorted to some pretty nasty tactics.
It was a war of attrition, wasn't it?
It was, just grinding each other down. Neither side could get a decisive win.
The British, they had the firepower.
Right. They had the big guns, but they were constantly harassed.
By these colonial militias?
They knew the land. They could disappear into the swamps.
Like ghosts.
Like ghosts, yeah.
And Washington, still struggling to keep his armies.
Right.
He just kept outmaneuvering the British.
He was brilliant. He knew how to use his limited resources to the max.
Always thinking ahead. And we can't forget the human cost.
Right. The human cost was tremendous.
Valley Forge. The winter of 1777-78.
Brutal.
Thousands of soldiers.
Freezing temperatures, no food, no medicine.
Disease was rampant.
It was a nightmare.
It's amazing they survived.
It's a testament to their will, their commitment to the cause.
Valley Forge became this symbol of American sacrifice and determination.
Absolutely. It showed what they were willing to endure for their freedom.
And Washington, he held the army together.
He was the glue. Sheer willpower, belief in the cause. It's easy to focus on the big battles, the political stuff.
Right.
But Valley Forge, it reminds us that wars are fought by ordinary people.
People who are willing to sacrifice everything.
Everything. And on the British side, they had all the power.
Yeah.
But their leadership, they were overconfident. They didn't really understand the challenges they faced.
They underestimated the colonists.
They underestimated their tenacity, their willingness to fight.
Their grit. We talked about Burgoyne's blunder at Saratoga.
Right.
But their Southern strategy.
Yeah.
That was also based on some bad assumptions.
They thought there would be all this loyalist support.
Yeah.
It wasn't there.
And the brutal tactics
Yeah.
employed by some of their commanders.
Like Banastra Tarleton.
Tarleton.
Bloody Tarleton. They called him that for a reason.
His actions just alienated the locals.
He pushed more people into the arms of the revolution.
It's almost like the harder they tried to crush the rebellion,
Right.
the stronger it became.
It's like pushing on a spring, you let go and it snaps back even harder.
Exactly. And Washington, he just kept outmaneuvering them,
Brilliant strategist.
always thinking a step ahead. And then, 1781,
1781.
the Battle of Yorktown.
Yorktown.
Pivotal moment.
It was the culmination of years of fighting.
A strategic victory.
A brilliant strategic victory.
That sealed the fate of British rule in America.
It was the beginning of the end.
Can you walk us through what happened at Yorktown?
Sure. By 1781, Cornwallis, the British commander,
Okay.
he had established a base at Yorktown.
In Virginia.
In Virginia, right?
Right.
They wanted to control the Chesapeake Bay.
Okay.
Washington saw an opportunity.
He always did, didn't he?
He had a knack for it. He came up with this bold plan
Okay.
with the help of the French.
The French were crucial.
They provided the naval support. Washington marched his army south. They trapped Cornwallis at Yorktown.
So it was a siege.
A siege, yeah, by land and by sea. The British were cut off.
Nowhere to go.
Nowhere to go. Cornwallis, he was outnumbered, outmaneuvered.
He had to surrender.
He had to surrender.
It was a stunning victory.
A stunning victory for the colonists.
A crushing defeat for the British.
It was more than just a military defeat. It was a symbolic defeat.
The end of an era.
It signaled the end of British rule in North America.
It sent shockwaves through Britain.
Oh, yeah. They were weary of war. The cost was too high.
In blood and treasure.
Blood and treasure.
And Parliament.
Yeah.
They started pushing for peace.
It was over.
The colonies were lost.
Lost. It's remarkable, isn't it?
Really is.
A group of colonies, they had limited resources, limited experience.
Right.
And they took on one of the most powerful empires in the world.
And won.
And won. It really challenges the idea that history is only shaped by the powerful.
It's a testament to the power of ideas. When people are united by a common cause,
Yeah.
anything is possible.
Yeah.
But winning the war was just the beginning.
The hard part was just starting.
The real challenge
Yeah.
was building a new nation.
Building a new nation,
Yeah.
living up to the ideals
Yeah.
that they fought so hard for.
It's like they crossed this raging river,
Right.
and on the other side is this treacherous mountain range.
Perfect analogy. They had to create a new identity,
Yeah.
a new system of government,
Balance individual liberty with national unity.
all while dealing with the divisions and the competing interests of the colonies.
It was a monumental task.
It was. And their first attempt, the Articles of Confederation,
Yep.
adopted in 1777,
Yeah.
it was intentionally designed to create a weak central government.
They had just fought a war to get rid of a strong central authority. They
Exactly.
didn't want to recreate that.
So they created a system where the states had most of the power.
But that approach had some problems, right?
It did. It was like trying to build a house
Okay.
with a pile of bricks
Yeah.
and no mortar.
It wasn't going to hold.
No. The central government under the Articles, it was just too weak.
They couldn't address national issues.
Taxes, trade, defense. There was no national currency.
Wow.
States were taxing each other.
What a mess.
It was chaos.
They needed something better.
They needed a stronger, more unified system.
And that's where the Constitutional Convention comes in.
1787.
Philadelphia.
Yeah.
They were supposed to revise the Articles, but they ended up doing something much more radical.
They did.
They created a whole new framework for government.
It was a pivotal moment in American history. They brought together these brilliant minds,
James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, George Washington,
the best and the brightest.
they debated, argued, compromised.
They were trying to solve some really tough problems.
How to balance power between the states and the national government.
How to protect individual liberty and ensure national security.
How to create a government that was stable, but also responsive to the people.
And they were doing all of this in a sweltering room in Philadelphia.
In the middle of summer,
It must have been intense.
you can imagine the tension, the arguments.
Yeah. And from that emerged the United States Constitution,
A miracle of compromise and innovation.
a document that still shapes American life today.
But it's also been debated and reinterpreted over the centuries.
It has. It was written over 200 years ago.
In a very different world. How can it still be relevant today?
That's the beauty of the Constitution. It's a living document. It can evolve.
They can adapt to new challenges.
The framers, they were smart. They created a framework that was flexible.
They create a system of checks and balances.
Right, to prevent any one branch of government from becoming too powerful.
They also created a federal system.
Dividing power between the national government and the states.
That allowed for unity and diversity.
Exactly. Of course, the Constitution wasn't perfect.
No document is.
It left some big issues unresolved.
Slavery.
The legacy of slavery would haunt the nation for generations.
But despite its flaws,
Yeah.
it provided a foundation.
A foundation for a new nation.
A nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal.
Powerful words.
The story of the American Revolution, it's a story of courage, compromise,
Yeah.
idealism, problem solving.
It's a reminder that empires can be challenged.
Obstacles can be overcome.
And the pursuit of freedom is a journey.
A journey that never ends.
Oh.
We've just scratched the surface of this period in American history.
There's so much more to explore.
I encourage you to dig deeper into the stories
The characters, the debates, the decisions.
that shaped the nation we live in today. And remember, the story of America is still being written. What role will you play in shaping its future? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the American Revolution.
Thanks for listening.
If you'd like to keep exploring history with us,
Yeah.
be sure to subscribe to the Deep Dive. We'll continue to uncover the hidden stories and unexpected connections that make the past
So relevant.
to the present.